Hey guys, this is Glorious Fruit back at it of another episode review of The Last of Us and the last episode review of The Last of Us. So, as I last mentioned in yesterday's episode review, I said that certain chapter was supposed to be the shortest chapter of the game. I'm wrong. The shortest chapter was the last chapter of the game, and so the show made their episode not too short, but it was shorter compared to the rest of the episodes. So let's get to it. So, in the very beginning of the episode, you meet a pregnant woman running away in the forest towards an abandoned home, and I have a clip of it. Now I'll show that right now. And so, this pregnant woman is supposed to be Ellie's mom, and the cool thing about this is that that very actor who plays as Ellie's mom is the voice actor of Ellie in the game. So it's pretty cool that she gets to guest star in it, just like the voice actor of Joel. And so she's hiding in this abandoned home. The infected eventually comes inside and she fights her way, kills the infected. And I have a clip of that as well. And so what happens after she ends up killing the infected, the bad part is that she got bitten on her thigh. And so while she fought the infected, Ellie was born. Her water was broken when she was running away from the infected. And so she quickly acted in cutting the umbilical cord just before any of the infected virus could have gone into Ellie. But I guess you can assume that by that one bite, maybe Ellie did get some of that, and that was the way how there was an evolution process where she was immune by the virus. I'm not gonna say the word because I'm getting to say it wrong. Like cordyceps, I will have it on the video somewhere. And so, not too long afterwards, Marlene, she shows up late. They were all from the Boston QZ zone, and they were held up and delayed. And so by the time Marlene and a few of her crew members came by, she found out that not Ellie, Anne was already bitten, and she was holding her own child. And so Ellie's mother gave her last request to Marlene that to take the baby, take her to somewhere, a safe home in the Boston QZ zone, and asked her to put a bullet in her head, basically kill her. And so Marlene could not do that at all. And so she ends up taking the baby from Anne and then gave it to one of her crew members. And as she hesitated, she walks back in and just pulls the shot. And I think I have a clip. I'll show that.
I was bit before. I want you to take her with you to Boston. Find someone to bring her up and make sure that she's safe. I can't do it. And I want you to give her this. I can't kill you. No, please. 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 No.
And then afterwards, fast forward to present time, you have Ellie zoned out, and there's Joel finding beefaroni, Chef Boyardee, and an old game that's, I think, called Boggle or whatever. Not too important. This is the beginning of the part where where the show kind of drifts just a little bit away from the game's dialogue because the same thing happens. Joel and Ellie arrive at Salt Lake City, Utah. Ellie's, just zoned out, and then Joel is talking about how he wants to get a guitar, wants to teach Ellie how to play the guitar, and then they
Yeah, I should find one. I haven't played in forever. In fact, I was thinking maybe I could teach you. I bet you'd be great at it. You want to learn how to play guitar? Ellie?
go on with Ellie's dream that she was an airplane, and then out of nowhere she had to go fly it, but she didn't know how to fly the airplane, and then she wakes up before not knowing if she crashed or landed the airplane. And she thought that was weird because she'd never been in a plane. And so that was like the whole difference that they drifted away with the show. I think they just wanted to give Joel some more father development kind of thing between the relationship between Ellie. Which I guess it works out in a way. Ellie's still zoned out. Basically, Joel asked Ellie to grab a ladder in the building and boost her up, and then she pulls out the building. I'm not the building, the ladder out, and then she drops it because she found something. And then Joel's like in a panic. It's like, Ellie, what are you doing? And then eventually, following through the same game's dialogue, Ellie spots a giraffe, and then Joel and Ellie are feeding the giraffe, and they have that special moment where that also goes with the game where there's this Joel acts as like a father figure as to Ellie, and Ellie's taken in this moment where like this is first time actually seeing a giraffe and feeding the giraffe, and it's just like this wholesome moment.
What are you doing?
It's all right. Here, hurry up. Come on.
And then you just see the face of Pascal, playing as Joel, having this, moment where it's like all that bad crap they went through. This is like a special moment for them. And so as they're watching the giraffes walk away, this is where Joel and Ellie had their own moment where like Joel is it basically come to a realization like, hey, we don't really need to go to the Fireflies. Why don't we just turn back around? And then as Ellie talked about, was that they can't just stop right here. It can't be all for nothing after what all they've been through. Of all the loss they had to go through, first with Tess, and then Sam and Henry, and then the things that Ellie had to face through on her own while Joel was injured, that all of that can't be for nothing. And so this is the next part where that also drifts just a bit away from the game and the show. So in the game, I'll quickly explain it. Ellie pulls out a photo of Joel and Sarah together in like some championship soccer thing, and then Joel picks it up, and finally he like expresses his emotions, and then finally like he can move on past the loss of his daughter, and and then accepts the photo as compared to in the game previously. Tommy wanted to give the photo to Joel, but Joel didn't want it. It was still too painful for him. But like after like all the journey that Joel and Ellie were together, Joel accepts the photo and finally accepts what happened, and leave the past in the past and move on forward. In the show, things were different. So in the very beginning of the show, Ellie asks what's with the scar on the side of Joel's head, and then Joel finally tells her the story that how some idiot shot him and missed, and so that idiot was Joel. And so this happened within days after the outbreak, and where the time where he lost Sarah, and where like he admitted that wanted to take his own life, and so he had again pointing at his own head, but then at split second he sort of changed, missed, and he thought of it like maybe it was just not meant to be, that something told him that this wasn't that moment. And then Ellie mentions that maybe time heals all wounds, and then Joel said no, it was not that. And he didn't expressively admitted it, but basically just saying that it wasn't time, that it was Ellie that helped him get through these things, that seeing Ellie, taking care of Ellie, watching over Ellie, protecting Ellie, and that at that point he found something to protect, wanting to move forward instead of waiting for when will his death come. And so they had that special moment, and I think I have a clip of that. If I
Tomorrow. Too soon?
No, it's topical.
Oh, I love this one. Moon rocks taste better than Earth rocks. Why? Because they're meteors.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh,
That's a
that was actually good.
that's a 0 out of 10.
All right. What did the green grape say to the purple grape? Breathe, you idiot.
That's a 3 out of 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. And so another part they basically dripped it off, and I think for good reasons why. As Ellie and Joel are making their way towards the hospital, they had to fight off some infected, some bloaters, some clickers, and whatnot. And then it got to the point where they have to cross a big tunnel where it was just flooded with water. And then I don't know if it was mentioned in the very beginning of the show, but Ellie couldn't swim, and I believe Sam said the same thing as well, where they had to cross and they hopped over buses, but then there was an accident where one of the buses moved and Joel fell in the water, and the water was just rushing through, and he couldn't get up where Ellie was. And so what does Ellie do? She tries to save Joel, but then they're both in the water drowning. Joel managed to grab Ellie, and then they ended up in dry land while Joel's performing CPR. A firefly tells him to raise his hands, and basically like, what are they doing there, and then knocks Joel out. And this version, none of that. They don't face any infected. What happens is that while they're having their moments of Ellie telling her all these dad jokes, in the just behind them in the background, fireflies threw in a smoke grenade, and then Joel was knocked out. And so same thing that happens in the game. Joel wakes up in the hospital where the fireflies are at, and the first person he sees is Marlene. And so Marlene was amazed at how Joel was able to bring Ellie towards Salt Lake City after all the things they went through, and she asked me how did he do it, and then he mentioned that it wasn't all him, it was all her, that she by sheer force of will and that they were able to make it here. And I would say it's true, because for one, she was hoping to bring the end of the infected, to bring an end to what was going on in their timeline, and in hopes to like finally be in more peace. And so Marlene finally mentions that they're prepping for surgery. Joel's in a panic. It's like, why they're prepping for surgery, and that they have to remove the part that helps Ellie not becoming infected. They have to remove it, and then Joel mentions that that's part of the brain. What will happen to Ellie if they remove that? And so it was obvious to see that Ellie wasn't going to live through that process. And so what they end up doing is that Marlene wanted to kick out Joel. And so this is in order to prevent from Joel from, taking away Ellie from them. And so as two soldiers or two fireflies, were pushing Joel out of the hospital. As soon as they're walking down the emergency stairs, Joel makes the quick move and execute those two fireflies.
Walking. I said keep walking. Where is she? Fuck you. I don't have time for this.
And then makes his way into the upper levels to the pediatric surgery, where he ends up, fighting with the majority of the fireflies. I have a few scenes where I'll show. This first one is basically just the brutal actions of Joel and just the motivation he has in wanting to protect Ellie. And so Joel doesn't really see it as a way of saving the human race. He just wants to protect Ellie. And so, these brutal actions he does, and these like mercy, where some of them were like willing to surrender, and one of them dropped a gun, but Joel is saying, you know what, I'm not going to take the chance, I'm just going to kill you anyways. One of them that was already downed, he just ends up killing him anyways and pick up their gun. It's pretty intense. And in the game it's pretty crazy, just because as the player, you're playing as Joel, you're taking out a lot more men. Over here, I guess, just for the sake of not dragging it on, they just have a quick montage. And so Joel finally makes it into the surgery room that Ellie's in. He shoots down the doctor without without second thought, and picks up Ellie and goes in the elevator and leaves. And then the next thing that happens is that Ellie's in the truck, waking up through the anesthetics, and Joel starts lying to Ellie. Where this is where it splits people in half, the community. This happened when the game first came out of PlayStation 3. Another reminder when they had it remastered for the PlayStation 4, and I guess we can assume that another split discussion between whether Joel did what he did was right or wrong when it came out for the PS5 and PC. And the same thing I imagine maybe people had when the show came out, for those who have never experienced playing the game or watching a playthrough. And so Joel lies to Ellie that there's dozens that are immune to the infected, just like her, and that they tried to make a cure, but it never happened. It never worked out. And so Joel finally made it to Wyoming, and there's a flashback where Marlene intercepted with Joel. I'm probably using the wrong word, intercepted, but yeah. So she tried to stop Joel, try to convince Joel to come back and bring Ellie. That it's not too late after what all he's done, all the killing he's done to the Fireflies. It's not too late to bring Ellie back. That this is something she would have wanted. And so this is the part where I felt like Ellie should have known, where like maybe HBO should have changed this part, because in the game Ellie didn't know, because she was already unconscious because she drowned, and Joel just managed to save her, or I think the Fireflies did. But they never gave her the details that she wasn't going to live through the surgery, or even tell her that she was going to go through surgery. In the show, they were caught by the Fireflies, by surprise attack. The only one who was knocked out was Joel. And so Ellie was finally calmed down that they were with the Fireflies. But they could have actually told her what was going to happen, that that she needed to do surgery, but she wasn't going to live through that surgery because the part that makes her immune is in the brain. And then when they remove that, chances are she would have died through the surgery. That's something where I think HBO should have changed it, at least that she was already known with the information that they could have given to her. But instead, I guess, basically, they took away any option of choice. They did this against her will, pretty much, without her knowing. And so, basically, Joel shoots Marlene, and he puts Ellie inside the van that he takes, or SUV, and goes back. And then Marlene's begging for Joel not to kill her, that please don't do this. And Joel said, just as savage as he is, he's like, you're just gonna come back and try to get her, and shoots her dead.
You just come after her.
And then Ellie mentioned what happened to the Fireflies after they left, and Joel lies again that raiders came in afterwards, and he grabbed Ellie and run like hell, and a lot of Fireflies died. And Ellie asked what happened to Marlene, and then Joel just mentioned that they're heading towards Tommy back to Wyoming. Ellie finally realized that Marlene died. And so the vehicle breaks down. They have 5 hours of hiking to do. And then Joel talks about his daughter, that he thought maybe Sarah would have liked Ellie for a moment. I forgot her name. That she would have liked to be with hanging around with Ellie, and maybe Ellie would have also liked Sarah. Where the difference between the two is Ellie was funny. I don't know. It was just a weird thing. Maybe Joel was trying to diss Ellie. Where she wasn't exactly the same thing as Ellie, where Sarah was more girly, while Ellie is not. And Sarah has a great smile, and he's but not to say that you don't have a great smile, you do as well, but you're funny. And so it was a kind of awkward conversation where it sounded like he was trying to diss Ellie, but not on purpose. And so finally, Ellie mentions that she did kill someone for the first time, and she goes back the conversation they had in Kansas City. And so she finally confesses that back at the second episode, when they ask how she got bitten, and she sneaked into the mall, but she didn't go by herself. She went with her friend that she liked, and mentioned that they will go all poetic, die together or turn together. And she didn't turn, and so she had to end up killing her own friend. And Joel's like, you gotta find something to fight, something new to fight for, or something to hang on to. And then that's when Ellie mentions, swear to me that what you're saying is true. And then,
Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
Joel says, I swear, where this was a second chance for Joel to finally come clean, to say what really happened. And what he ends up lying anyways, that saying what he said previously during the ride is still true. And Ellie said okay, and that's the end of the episode. And this is the part where it really splits. When the game first came out, and many people got to the end, this really split people in half, where what Joel did, was this okay or not? And people would say yes, and people say no. And I think it still goes on where like people didn't like the way how it ended, and and the show kept it to the same. This basically this episode was almost exactly the same way how it ended in the chapter. Just three things that were changed, and in some way, I kind of agree that, yes, I think Joel, what he did was right, and he would do it again if he had the same opportunity to do it. Just for one, that like, it was like either accept and let Ellie go for the sake of humanity, or try to save Ellie and just so he can give her another chance to live her life, whether she wanted to do this or not. And so, I guess it's the whole thing where like he's gone through this trauma already with Sarah. He couldn't save Sarah, and so he had the opportunity to save Ellie from the surgery. And can he go through this pain again? After the moments they had just before meeting up with the Fireflies. And so what he did was, it was out of love, even though it was dark. And so this was act of love, and and where the parent side of him kicked in, where piss off Mama Bear. I guess this is like a same situation as of Jack and the Titanic, where was there more room for Jack to be on the floating door? And so people would still be like on one side and the other. And it is what it is, but the show did really well. I liked it, even though many others would have preferred the game. And what, I'll just say what most people commented during all social media. Just play the game if you don't like the show. That it's like things that you want the same Yoda, like the same way as already written in a game or in a comic book. But for directors, they're kind of like artists as well. They want something that's theirs as well, something that's not already been done. Because why do you want to see the same thing again if it's already been done the first time? And so that's the way I see it. There's there's one thing that I guess I wouldn't agree on, and it was the part where Henry, where like you get this more cautious and scared Henry as compared to the game where Henry was just like a survivor, just like Joel, that he would do anything to protect his brother. And so he would fight his way out. But in the show, Henry was more of, he is scared, even though he would do anything for his brother, but he probably wouldn't go exactly in great lengths to do so. And so, yeah, that's the end of the review, and I hope you guys liked it. I'll have some clips around in the video, but yeah, hope you guys like it, and we'll see season 2. Definitely remember the doctor that died, that Joel shot. It will definitely come back if there's a season 2 for the show. But yeah, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.